No one in the small town of Cedarville knew that the old German shepherd, lying beside the girl in the wheelchair that sunny Saturday morning, had once saved 9 lives in a building collapse that shocked the entire nation. And no one knew that within the next 2 hours, he would have to save one more life. This time, it would be the 8-year-old girl he loved most in this world. If stories about loyalty and courage touch your heart, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell right now. Trust me, you will not want to miss what happens next. The morning sun painted Riverside Park in shades of warm gold. Families spread blankets across the grass. Children chased butterflies near the fountain. Joggers traced lazy paths between ancient oak trees. It was the kind of peaceful Saturday that made people forget the world could ever be cruel. Beneath the largest oak tree sat Grace, a 17-year-old girl with chestnut hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her wheelchair rested on a patch of soft grass, and across her lap lay a worn sketchbook. Her pencil moved gently across the page, capturing the park's beauty in soft strokes of charcoal. Art was her escape, her freedom, the one thing that made her forget about the wheels beneath her, a faint scar traced across her right hand. Most people never noticed it, but Grace noticed it every single day. It reminded her of everything she had lost and everything she had found. Lying beside her wheelchair was Bruno, a large German shepherd with intelligent amber eyes and a distinctive notch in his left ear from an old injury. His massive head rested near her wheels, but his gaze never stopped scanning the surroundings. Every few seconds, his ears would twitch, tracking sounds that human ears could never detect. He was not just a pet, he was a guardian. About 30 feet away, a little girl with bouncy blonde pigtails was picking wildflowers near the edge of the meadow. This was Mia, Grace's 8-year-old sister. Her laughter rang through the air like wind chimes as she collected daisies and dandelions. Grace looked up from her drawing and smiled. "Keep where I can see you, Mia." Mia waved back, her small hands clutching a bouquet of yellow flowers. "I am making you a present, Gracie." Bruno's tail thumped softly against the grass. His watchful eyes followed Mia's every movement with unwavering attention. When Grace had asked him to watch over her little sister, he had taken that request as seriously as any mission he had ever received, because Bruno was no ordinary dog. Even in retirement, the discipline and quiet strength of a former police K9 lived in his bones. Around his neck hung a metal tag that caught the sunlight. The inscription on that tag told a story that would soon change everything. But for now, peace settled over the little family like a warm blanket. Grace continued her drawing. Mia continued picking flowers. Bruno continued his silent watch. None of them noticed the 3 shadows approaching from across the field. The 3 teenagers walked with the kind of confidence that only came from privilege. Designer clothes, expensive sneakers, watches that cost more than most people earned in a month. Leading them was Marcus Reed, tall and athletic with perfectly styled dark hair. His polo shirt probably cost $200. His smirk suggested he had never heard the word no in his entire life. Behind him walked Jake, a blond boy with nervous eyes who kept glancing around as if looking for an escape route. And beside Jake was Ryan, shorter than the others, with a cruel twist to his smile and a half-empty soda can dangling from his fingers. Marcus spotted Grace first. His eyes traveled from her wheelchair to her sketchbook to her peaceful expression. Something dark flickered across his face. He nudged his friends and changed direction. Their shadows fell across Grace's sketchbook before she even heard their footsteps. She looked up slowly, her pencil pausing mid-stroke. Marcus tilted his head, examining her like she was some kind of exhibit. "Well, well, look what we have here. A little street artist." Grace did not respond immediately. She had learned long ago that bullies fed on reactions. Instead, she calmly closed her sketchbook and met his gaze directly. Bruno rose to his feet in one fluid motion. His ears flattened slightly. A low rumble began building in his chest. Ryan snickered and tossed his empty soda can near Bruno's paws. Ugly old mutt. Bet he cannot even run anymore. Bruno held his ground, positioning himself between Grace and the boys. His body was tense, his stance protective. From across the meadow, Mia noticed the strangers surrounding her sister. Her flower picking stopped. She began walking quickly back toward the oak tree, clutching her bouquet tightly. Marcus leaned down toward Grace, invading her personal space. What is wrong? Cat got your tongue? Or maybe your legs got it instead. His friends laughed. It was an ugly sound. Grace felt her heart hammering, but she kept her voice steady. You are blocking my light. Please leave us alone. Marcus blinked. For a moment, genuine surprise crossed his face. He was not used to being dismissed. He was not used to anyone standing up to him. The surprise quickly twisted into anger. He snatched the sketchbook from Grace's lap before she could react. Let us see what the little cripple has been drawing. Grace reached for it, but her wheelchair made the movement slow and awkward. Marcus easily held it out of reach, flipping through the pages with exaggerated disdain. Trees, flowers, a dog. He held up a portrait of Bruno for his friends to see. How pathetic. Kindergarten stuff. Jake shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should just go, man. Marcus ignored him. He was enjoying himself too much. Ryan moved behind Grace's wheelchair and grabbed the handles. Let us take the artist for a little ride. Before Grace could protest, he shoved the wheelchair forward. The sudden movement sent her lurching, her hands scrambling for the armrests. Ryan spun her in a circle, making her dizzy, making the world blur into a nauseating swirl of colors. Bruno barked sharply, circling the wheelchair, trying desperately to stop the spinning without hurting anyone. Mia arrived just in time to see her sister being tormented. Her eyes went wide with terror. She dropped her flowers and ran toward them. Stop it! Leave my sister alone. Marcus turned toward the little girl with an amused expression. Oh, look! The cavalry has arrived. Ryan finally stopped spinning Grace. She gripped the armrests, fighting down nausea, blinking back tears of humiliation and rage. Bruno positioned himself in front of both sisters now, his growl deepening into something primal and dangerous. His lips curled back slightly, revealing teeth that could crush bone. But he did not attack. His training held firm. Protect, defend, but never strike first. Marcus looked at the dog and laughed. What is he going to do? Bark me to death? He stepped closer to Bruno, close enough to see his own reflection in those steady, unwavering eyes. And then Marcus did the unforgivable. Marcus drew back his leg and kicked Bruno hard in the ribs. The sound that followed would haunt everyone who heard it for the rest of their lives. Bruno yelped, a sharp cry of pain that sliced through the peaceful morning like a knife. His legs buckled. He collapsed onto his side, whimpering, his body curling protectively around the agony spreading through his chest. Grace screamed his name. Mia burst into tears and threw herself toward the fallen dog, wrapping her small arms around his neck. Bruno! No! Bruno! Wake up! The entire park fell silent. People stopped mid-conversation. Joggers froze in their tracks. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. For one terrible moment, the world held its breath. Marcus stepped back, suddenly uncertain. His friends exchanged nervous glances. The reality of what they had done began settling over them like a cold fog. Bruno tried to lift his head, tried to reach Grace and Mia, but the pain was overwhelming. He struggled to breathe, each inhale bringing a sharp whine of agony. The kick had landed directly on his ribs, and every movement sent waves of fire through his body. Grace struggled to wheel herself closer, but the uneven grass caught her wheels. She pushed harder, desperation fueling her movements. I am here, Bruno. I am right here. Just hold on. An elderly woman named Eleanor, who had been feeding pigeons nearby, had already pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled slightly, but her camera was steady. She had recorded everything from the moment the boys arrived, and she continued recording now. In the distance, someone shouted for help. Others began moving toward the scene, drawn by the commotion, by the crying child, by the sight of a wounded dog lying motionless on the grass. Mia looked up at Marcus through her tears. Her small voice was barely a whisper. "Why did you hurt him? He never did anything to you." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in his life, he had no smart comeback, no witty deflection, just silence. A man broke through the gathering crowd. He was in his late 30s, athletic build, wearing jogging clothes and a look of controlled intensity. He had been running on the far side of the park when he heard the dogs cry. Now, as he pushed through the onlookers and saw the scene before him, his expression shifted from concern to recognition to something that looked a lot like rage barely contained. He knelt beside Bruno, his hands moving with practiced expertise over the dog's body, checking for injuries. His fingers found the tender area near the ribs, and Bruno whimpered softly. The man's jaw tightened. Then his eyes fell on the metal tag hanging from Bruno's collar. He went completely still. His hand reached out slowly, almost reverently, and turned the tag so he could read the inscription. K9 Bruno, Unit 14, Medal of Valor, Millbrook Rescue, 9 survivors. The man's face changed completely. He whispered a single word. Bruno. He looked at the dog's face, at the notched ear, at the intelligent eyes now clouded with pain. "It is really you," his voice cracked. This was Officer Daniel Mitchell, a 38-year-old veteran of the Cedarville Police Department. He was currently on medical leave, working through the trauma of a rescue operation that still haunted his dreams. 3 years ago, he had been first on the scene at the Millbrook building collapse, and Bruno had been there too. Daniel stood slowly, his expression hardening into something cold and dangerous. He turned toward Marcus and the other boys, who were now backing away with fear in their eyes. "Who kicked this dog?" His voice was quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet that came before a storm. Nobody answered. Daniel stepped closer. I asked a question. "Who kicked this dog?" Marcus finally found his voice. It was shaking. "He attacked me first. I was just defending myself." Daniel looked at Bruno, who was still lying on his side, still trying to reach Grace and Mia, still refusing to give up despite the pain. Then he looked back at Marcus. "That dog has never attacked anyone in his entire career. He has saved more lives than you can count. He is a decorated hero who served this community with more honor than you will ever understand." Daniel pointed directly at Marcus. "And you just assaulted him." Marcus turned pale. His friends had already distanced themselves from him, edging toward the back of the growing crowd. Daniel pulled out his phone and began dialing for emergency services. But before he could complete the call, Eleanor stepped forward. "Officer, I recorded everything, from the very beginning, every word, every action. That kick." Daniel nodded grimly. "Good. We are going to need that." He turned back to Marcus, studying his face with sudden recognition. "Marcus Reed, son of Mayor Thomas Reed." Daniel's voice carried across the silent crowd. 6 months ago, you were reported for bullying a disabled student at Wilson High. That case was mysteriously dropped. No charges, no consequences. Marcus's face drained of color. His confident stance crumbled. "I remember because I was the one who took the initial report. I was the one who watched that case disappear. And I always wondered who made it go away." He leaned closer. "I am not wondering anymore." Grace had finally managed to will herself next to Bruno. She placed her hand gently on his head, tears streaming down her face. Daniel crouched beside her. "Miss, can you tell me about this dog? How long have you had him? Grace took a shaky breath. 3 years, since the accident. What accident? Grace looked at Bruno, her fingers stroking his fur with infinite tenderness. When she spoke, her voice carried across the hushed crowd. 3 years ago, I was 14. My mom was driving us home from my art class when a truck ran a red light. Our car flipped 3 times and landed in a ditch. She paused, swallowing hard. My mom died on impact. I was trapped under the dashboard. My legs were crushed. I could not move. I could smell gasoline. I thought I was going to die. The crowd had gone completely silent. Even Marcus and his friends stood frozen. The fire department could not reach me. The car was too unstable. Every time they tried to cut through the metal, the whole thing shifted. They were afraid it would collapse on top of me. Grace looked down at Bruno with eyes full of love and gratitude. Then Bruno came. He was part of the K9 search and rescue unit. He crawled through a gap so small that no human could fit. He found me in the darkness. Her voice broke. He stayed with me for 3 hours. 3 hours in that twisted metal. He lay on top of the broken glass so it would not cut me. He kept me warm. He kept me calm. He would not leave, even when they ordered him out. Even when it was dangerous. Even when pieces of the car were falling around us. Daniel's eyes were wet. He remembered that night. He remembered the chaos, the sirens, the desperate race against time. I was there, he said quietly. I was one of the first responders. I remember when they finally got you out. Bruno would not let anyone touch you until the paramedics arrived. Grace nodded. When I woke up in the hospital and they told me I would never walk again, I wanted to give up. I wanted to stop fighting. She looked at Bruno, who, despite his pain, was trying to lift his head toward her. But Bruno was there. Every single day. Every single night. The police department let me adopt him after he retired from his injuries. That notch in his ear? He got it protecting me that night. She turned to look directly at Marcus. He saved my life. He gave me a reason to keep living. And you kicked him like he was nothing. Marcus's face had gone gray. Jake and Ryan stood behind him, looking like they wanted to disappear into the ground. But before anyone could respond, a scream pierced the air from the direction of the lake. Help! Someone help! There is a little girl in the water. Grace's blood turned to ice. She looked toward the meadow where Mia had been standing moments ago. Mia was gone. During the chaos, while everyone was focused on Bruno, the frightened 8-year-old had run away. She had run toward the lake, toward the beautiful water lilies growing at the edge, not knowing that the bank dropped off sharply into deep cold water. Grace's scream tore through the air. Mia! Mia! Daniel was already running, his phone forgotten, his body moving on pure instinct. The crowd parted before him like water, but someone else was moving too. Bruno, despite the agony in his ribs, despite every breath feeling like fire, despite his body screaming at him to stay down, he lifted his head. He saw Grace's terror. He heard the panic in her voice, and he understood. Mia was in danger. Slowly, painfully, Bruno rose to his feet. He swayed for a moment, his legs trembling beneath him. His breathing was labored, each inhale a struggle against the pain radiating through his chest. Grace saw what he was doing. No, Bruno, stay down. You are hurt. Bruno looked at her one last time. In that moment, something passed between them, an understanding, a farewell, a promise. Then he turned and ran. Every step sent lightning bolts of pain through his chest. Every breath was a battle, but he ran anyway, following the screams, following the splashing, following the sound of a little girl drowning. Daniel reached the lake first and saw the nightmare unfolding before him. Mia was about 30 feet from shore, thrashing in the cold water, her small arms flailing desperately. She did not know how to swim. The current was pulling her farther from the bank. Her head dipped below the surface, came back up, dipped again. Daniel kicked off his shoes, preparing to dive in. But something golden brown streaked past him and launched itself into the water without a moment's hesitation. Bruno, the German Shepherd, hit the lake with a splash and immediately began swimming toward Mia with powerful strokes. Each movement drove daggers of pain into his injured ribs. Each breath was harder than the last, but he did not stop. Mia's head went under again. This time she did not come back up immediately. Bruno dove. Beneath the dark water, visibility was nearly zero. Bruno relied on instinct, on his training, on the desperate need to save this child. His paws swept through the murky depths until they found fabric. He clamped his jaws gently around Mia's jacket and pulled upward with every ounce of strength he had left. They broke the surface together. Mia gasped and coughed, choking on water, but alive. She wrapped her arms around Bruno's neck and held on with the desperate strength of a terrified child. "Good boy. Good Bruno," she sobbed between coughs. "I am scared." Bruno began swimming toward shore, but his movements were growing slower. The cold water was sapping his remaining strength. His injured ribs made every stroke agony. Daniel waded into the shallows, reaching out his arms. "Almost there, Bruno. Just a little more." Bruno pushed forward. One more stroke, another. His legs were going numb. His vision was darkening at the edges. With one final surge of effort, he propelled Mia close enough for Daniel to grab her. The little girl was lifted from the water and carried to shore, coughing and crying, but alive. But Bruno was sinking. His strength was gone. His body had nothing left to give. The water closed over his head, and he felt himself drifting downward into the cold darkness. From the shore, Grace watched in horror as Bruno disappeared beneath the surface. She did not think. She did not hesitate. She threw herself out of her wheelchair and crawled across the grass toward the water's edge, her useless legs dragging behind her, her arms pulling her forward through sheer force of will. "Bruno." Her voice was raw, broken. "Bruno, no, please. Do not leave me." Daniel had already handed Mia to a bystander. He turned back toward the lake and saw the ripples where Bruno had gone under. Without a word, he dove into the cold water and disappeared. Seconds passed. Each one felt like an eternity. Grace reached the water's edge, her hands clawing at the mud. "Come back. Please come back." Mia struggled free from the stranger holding her and ran to her sister's side. Both girls stared at the water, both crying, both praying. Then Daniel burst to the surface with Bruno in his arms. He dragged the unconscious dog to shore and laid him on the grass. Bruno was not breathing. His eyes were closed. His body was still. Daniel immediately began performing CPR, pressing rhythmically on Bruno's chest, trying to force the water from his lungs, trying to restart his heart. "Come on, boy," Daniel's voice cracked. "Do not do this. Not after everything you have survived. Come on." Grace pulled herself next to Bruno's head and pressed her face against his wet fur. Her tears mixed with the lake water still dripping from his coat. "You saved me once," she whispered. "You cannot leave now. Not like this. Please, Bruno. Please." Mia pressed herself against Bruno's side, her small body shaking with sobs. "Please wake up, Bruno. I am sorry I ran away. Please, I will never run away again. I promise." Daniel kept working. Compressions, breath. Compressions, breath. His own eyes were wet, but his hands never stopped. "Come on, hero. Come on." For one terrible moment, nothing happened. And then Bruno coughed. Water sprayed from his mouth. His body convulsed. His eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then slowly finding Grace's face above him. His tail moved, just a small twitch. But it was there. He was alive. The crowd erupted. Some people cheered. Others were crying openly. Strangers hugged strangers, united by the miracle they had just witnessed. Daniel sat back on his heels, his chest heaving, his hands shaking. He looked at Bruno with something like awe. "You stubborn, magnificent animal." Bruno tried to lift his head, but Grace gently pressed him back down. "Do not move. Just rest. You did it. You saved her. You saved our Mia." An ambulance siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. Someone had called for emergency services during the chaos, and help was finally arriving. Eleanor stepped forward. The elderly woman was still holding her phone, which had recorded everything from the very beginning. She knelt beside Grace. "I have been streaming this live for the past 20 minutes. Over 50,000 people have already watched." Grace looked up at her, not fully understanding yet what this would mean. Eleanor's eyes were fierce with righteous anger. "That boy who kicked your dog, he is not going to get away with it, not this time." The video went viral within hours. 2 million views in the first 24 hours, 5 million by the end of the weekend. News stations across the country picked up the story. The hashtag Justice for Bruno trended nationally. The footage showed everything. The boys approaching Grace, the mocking, the spinning wheelchair, the kick, Bruno's collapse, and then the rescue. Bruno rising despite his injuries, swimming into the lake, saving Mia, going under. America watched and America wept, and America demanded justice. Mayor Thomas Reed held a press conference 2 days later. He looked like he had aged 10 years. His political advisors had told him there was no way to spin this, no way to make it disappear. Too many people had seen. Too many people cared. Marcus was arrested and charged with assault on a disabled person and felony animal cruelty. The charges were serious. The evidence was overwhelming. But it was Jake's testimony that truly destroyed any hope of escape. In a recorded statement, Jake revealed that this was not an isolated incident. Marcus has done this at least 4 times before. He always targets people who cannot fight back, people in wheelchairs, kids with disabilities. He thinks it is funny. Jake's voice broke. His dad always makes it go away, always pays someone off or threatens them or makes phone calls. And I was too scared to say anything. He looked directly at the camera. But watching Bruno today, watching him get up even though he was hurt, watching him save that little girl when he had every reason to just stay down, I realized something. Tears streamed down his face. Being brave does not mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're terrified. Bruno taught me that, and I am done being a coward. One by one, Marcus's previous victims came forward. The families who had been intimidated into silence, the students who had been afraid to speak, the witnesses who had been pressured to forget. Mayor Reed resigned 3 days later. The scandal was too large, too public, too impossible to contain. Marcus was sentenced to 18 months in a juvenile detention facility, followed by 2 years of probation and mandatory community service, working with disabled individuals. Ryan received similar charges. Unlike Jake, he showed no remorse during his hearing. He was sentenced to 12 months in juvenile detention and 300 hours of community service at an animal shelter. The judge said he hoped that caring for vulnerable animals might teach him the empathy he so clearly lacked. Jake received a lighter sentence in exchange for his cooperation. He also enrolled in a program that trained volunteers to work against bullying in schools. 2 weeks after the sentencing, Jake visited Grace at her home. "I am sorry," his voice was barely above a whisper. "I know that does not fix anything, but I needed you to know." Grace looked at him for a long moment. "Bruno taught me something too," she said finally. "He taught me that everyone deserves a second chance. Do not waste yours." 3 weeks after that terrible day, on a Saturday morning that looked remarkably like the one where everything had changed, Grace returned to Riverside Park. Same oak tree, same golden sunlight, same peaceful atmosphere. But everything was different now. Grace sat in her wheelchair with a new sketchbook on her lap. This one had been a gift from Officer Daniel, who had become a regular visitor to their home. The first page already held a completed drawing. It was a portrait of Bruno, lying peacefully in the grass with his eyes half closed and his tail curled contentedly around him. Underneath, Grace had written 3 words in careful script: my guardian, my hero, my family. Mia was playing nearby, picking wildflowers just like before. But now she stayed close, always within sight, always checking to make sure Bruno was watching. And Bruno was watching. He lay beside Grace's wheelchair, his ribs wrapped in bandages that would come off in another week. The vet had said he was lucky: severe bruising and 2 cracked ribs, but no internal bleeding, no permanent damage. He would heal. His tail thumped against the grass as Mia brought him a dandelion. This one is for you, Bruno, because yellow is happy and you make me happy. Bruno accepted the flower gravely, as if it were a medal of honor, which in a way it was. Daniel arrived a few minutes later, carrying 2 cups of coffee and a bag of dog treats. He had made it a habit to check on them every few days, to make sure they were okay, to spend time with the dog who had once been his partner in the most difficult moments of his career. He handed Grace her coffee and sat down on the grass beside Bruno. I have news. Grace raised an eyebrow. The governor's office called this morning. They want to hold a ceremony next month. Daniel smiled. Bruno is being awarded a 2nd Medal of Valor, first dog in state history to receive it twice. Grace looked down at Bruno, who was contentedly chewing the treat Mia had given him. He does not care about medals. I know. Daniel reached out and scratched behind Bruno's notched ear. But the rest of us need to remember. We need to remember that heroes do not always wear uniforms. Sometimes they have 4 legs and bad breath and a stubborn streak a mile wide. Bruno huffed softly, as if offended by the bad breath comment. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the park come alive around them. Families on blankets, children playing, dogs chasing frisbees. Life continuing as it always did, beautiful and fragile and precious. Eventually, Daniel spoke again. Can I ask you something, Grace? She nodded. That day at the lake, when Bruno was underwater, when we all thought we had lost him, he paused, struggling with the memory. I saw you crawl out of your wheelchair. I saw you drag yourself across the grass to reach him. Grace's hand found Bruno's fur, her fingers threading through the thick coat. What would you have done if I had not been able to get him out? Grace was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady. I would have gone in after him. Daniel stared at her. You cannot swim. Not anymore. I know. Then why? Grace looked at him with eyes that held no fear. Bruno spent 3 hours in a collapsed car, keeping me alive. He refused to leave me even when they ordered him out. Even when it was dangerous. Even when it hurt. She shrugged simply. Did you really think I would let him drown alone? Daniel had no response to that. Some bonds were beyond explanation, beyond logic, beyond the simple mathematics of life and death. They were just love. Mia came running back with another handful of flowers, her laughter bright and carefree. She flopped down next to Bruno and began weaving the flowers into his collar, turning the fearsome former police dog into a rather festive-looking garden decoration. Bruno endured this with patient dignity. Grace laughed, a sound she had not made enough in recent years, and picked up her pencil to capture the moment. The afternoon sun continued its slow descent, painting the park in shades of amber and gold. The 3 figures beneath the oak tree, girl and child and dog, cast long shadows across the grass. And as the day faded toward evening, Bruno rested his great head on Grace's lap and closed his eyes. He was home. He was loved. He was exactly where he was meant to be. People say that dogs are man's best friend, but for Grace and Mia, Bruno was so much more. He was their protector, their healer, their family. And on quiet evenings, when the sun sets golden over Riverside Park, you might still see them there beneath the old oak tree. A girl in a wheelchair, drawing pictures of the world she sees. A child with flower-stained fingers, laughing at everything and nothing. And a brave German shepherd with watchful eyes standing guard. Always standing guard, because that is what true heroes do. They get up when they are hurt. They protect those who cannot protect themselves. And they love without counting the cost. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. And if you have a story about your own four-legged hero, share it in the comments below. Because every dog has a story, and every story deserves to be told.